Hi, it's me, the storyteller. Thank you for joining me. Most of my stories on this channel are based on actual events, and some aren't. I'll let you decide if this story is fiction, or if it's not. The Mojave Desert does not announce danger. There are no warning signs when something goes wrong. No clear border between safe ground and fatal mistakes. What looks flat can collapse. What looks close can take hours to reach. Every year, people disappear in the Mojave. Most cases are eventually explained. Some are not. In November of 2014, an experienced desert hiker entered this landscape alone, expecting to return within days. His vehicle was located. His general search area was known. His phone was recovered. He was never found. This is the disappearance of Kenny Veatch. Kenny Veatch lived in Las Vegas, Nevada. He was known for long, solo hikes through remote desert terrain, often moving off trail and covering distances most hikers would avoid. He carried minimal supplies and prided himself on endurance, navigation, and self-reliance. Kenny was not a casual explorer. He understood heat exposure, terrain traps, and the speed at which mistakes become fatal in the desert. He had spent years hiking the Mojave and nearby mountain ranges, often choosing isolation over safety margins. He was also familiar with areas bordering restricted government land, including regions near Nellis Air Force Base. This was not unfamiliar or intimidating territory to him. Those who knew Kenny described him as independent, inventive, and stubbornly persistent. When he committed to something, he followed through, which is why a single experience he described years earlier would later stand out. During an online discussion about unusual experiences in the Nevada desert, Kenny described encountering a cave during one of his hikes. He said the entrance was shaped like a capital letter M, low to the ground and partially concealed by terrain. As he approached it, he experienced a physical reaction he could not explain. He described his body vibrating. The sensation intensified as he moved closer. More importantly, he described fear, not curiosity or excitement. Fear strong enough that he turned around and left immediately. This reaction was unusual. Kenny regularly entered caves without hesitation. He was not prone to panic. Yet this cave produced a response he later said he had never felt before. Whether the cave existed exactly as described is secondary to one critical fact. Kenny believed the experience was real, and it unsettled him enough to remember it years later. After sharing the story publicly, responses followed. Some dismissed it. Others challenged him to prove it. Kenny decided to return. He went back into the desert with a camera, intending to relocate the cave and document it. He filmed himself hiking through terrain he believed he recognized, explaining where he thought the cave should be. He did not find it. He admitted confusion. He said he remembered the cave clearly and believed it should have been easy to relocate. Instead, it appeared to be gone. Despite this, Kenny remained convinced the cave existed. He stated he would return again, this time for a longer, more deliberate search. He planned a 3-day solo hike. He expected to cover roughly 40 miles, and he stated that this cave was the only one that had ever made him hesitate. In the years leading up to his disappearance, Kenny Veatch occasionally documented his desert hikes online. The videos were not polished productions or part of a larger following. They were simple records of hiking routes, terrain, and landmarks he encountered while hiking alone. In these recordings, Kenny often pointed out distant mountain ranges, valleys, and washes, explaining the directions he planned to travel and how he navigated the landscape. He treated the camera less as an audience and more as a reference point, narrating his decisions as he moved. These videos would later become critical. On November 10th, 2014, Kenny Veatch left for the Mojave Desert. He packed supplies appropriate for a multi-day hike. He brought his firearm. He did not bring his camera. When several days passed without his return, concern grew. On November 14th, Kenny was reported missing. Search and rescue operations began almost immediately. Kenny's vehicle was located without difficulty, providing a clear anchor point. Based on his previous videos, comments, and described landmarks, searchers were able to approximate the region he intended to explore. It also established something else. Kenny was not improvising blindly. He believed he knew exactly where he was going. Helicopters scanned from above. Ground teams searched washes, ridgelines, canyons, and abandoned mine sites. The Mojave complicates searches in ways many people underestimate. From the air, terrain looks open. On the ground, it fractures into dead ends, vertical drops, and impassable ravines. Sound does not travel predictably. Tracks disappear quickly. Even so, the search was extensive. They found no campsite, no discarded equipment, no sign that anyone had been moving through the area. Then, attention turned to a location Kenny himself had highlighted in a previous video. An old mine shaft he warned could be fatal if someone fell inside. Near that location, searchers found Kenny's cell phone. It was not damaged, buried, or shattered. It still had battery life. It did not appear to have been dropped during a fall. It appeared placed. This detail would become the center of the case. If Kenny had fallen, the phone likely would have fallen with him. If he had been injured nearby, the phone might have shown signs of panic use or damage. If he had become disoriented, it would likely have been lost along the way. None of that occurred. Cameras were lowered into the mine shaft. There was no sign of Kenny. Search dogs were brought in. They failed to pick up a reliable scent trail. There was no blood, no torn clothing, and no indication of a struggle. In an environment where even small accidents usually leave evidence, Kenny Veatch left almost nothing behind. People disappear in deserts every year. Most cases eventually point to exposure, injury, or navigational error. Kenny's disappearance resists that pattern. He was experienced. His general route was known. A major hazard nearby was examined. And yet there was no physical trail leading to a conclusion. The absence itself became the defining feature of the case. Now, let's delve into the most widely discussed theories as to what could have happened to Kenny. Theory 1. Accident or fall. The Mojave is filled with hazards capable of killing quickly and quietly. Hidden crevices, unstable rock, vertical drops concealed by shadow. It is possible Kenny fell somewhere beyond the search grid. It is possible his body lies in terrain never fully examined. But most fall incidents leave something behind: disturbed ground, broken equipment, a partial trail. Here, nothing surfaced. Theory 2. Exposure and disorientation. Even experienced hikers can misjudge distance, water needs, or daylight. Heat exhaustion and dehydration impair judgment rapidly. Panic accelerates mistakes, but exposure cases usually leave a pattern: discarded gear, attempts to seek shelter, erratic movement. Again, there was no such trail. Theory 3. The mine shaft. The proximity of the phone to the mine shaft raised immediate suspicion, but inspections found no evidence Kenny had fallen inside. The phone itself showed no signs consistent with an accidental drop. If the shaft was involved, it did not behave like other mine-related accidents. Theory 4. Human encounter. Some believe Kenny encountered people who did not want to be found. The Mojave has long been home to off-grid residents, illegal activity, and hidden encampments. Encounters in isolated regions do not always end well, but violent encounters leave evidence. Struggles leave signs. Even careful concealment leaves traces. In this case, there were none. Theory 5. Intentional disappearance. Kenny had faced financial stress and personal setbacks. Some have suggested he intentionally vanished, leaving his phone behind to mislead searchers. But this theory requires accepting that he chose one of the most hostile environments in North America to disappear, and that he did so without leaving a single confirmed trace. Those close to him questioned whether he would abandon family in that way. The theory remains possible, but unsupported. Theory 6. Restricted land. Kenny disappeared on government-controlled land, near regions tied to restricted military activity. Large areas of Nevada are monitored well beyond clearly marked boundaries. Security patrols operate quietly and documentation is rare. If someone wanders into the wrong area, explanations are not public. This theory explains the lack of evidence. It does not confirm anything. Theory 7. The land itself. Some investigators believe the desert environment played a more active role. The Mojave distorts perception. Heat shimmer alters distance. Familiar landmarks shift under changing light. Navigation becomes unreliable even for experienced hikers. The vibration Kenny described may have been a physiological response. Fear, triggered by isolation, terrain, or something his instincts recognized before his mind could explain it. Once fear takes hold in remote terrain, decision-making collapses quickly, but even panic usually leaves traces. This did not. Theory 8. Area 51 in the alien angle. Here is where it gets mysterious. This is where the case crosses into speculation. The region near Kenny's disappearance has long been associated with reports of unidentified aerial phenomena, UAP, and claims of non-human technology. Former military personnel have described hidden facilities beneath the desert. Others have claimed encounters with non-human entities operating in restricted zones. Some believe the cave Kenny described was not natural, that it may have been an entrance to something concealed. In the months before his disappearance, Kenny publicly described finding something in the desert that frightened him enough to leave and compelling enough to return. After he shared that experience, one comment appeared beneath his video, warning him not to go back. The comment suggested familiarity with the area and carried the implication of insider knowledge, but it did not elaborate. It did not explain who the commenter was or how they knew what they claimed to know. It simply warned that if Kenny entered the cave, he would not get out. The wording of the comment was notably restrained. It did not threaten. It did not speculate. It did not attempt to persuade. It read less like an opinion and more like a statement of certainty, as if the outcome was already understood. That warning has often been dismissed as coincidence or internet exaggeration. But in the context of where Kenny was hiking, it carries a different weight. Large sections of the Nevada desert are not simply remote. They are restricted. The boundaries around sensitive military installations are enforced aggressively and without negotiation. Posted warnings in these areas explicitly state that the use of deadly force is authorized against trespassers. This is not speculative language. It is written plainly on the signs. Years after Kenny disappeared, internet sleuths, retracing his possible routes, reported encountering signage partially buried in the desert terrain. Warnings that were not obvious from a distance and not always visible at ground level until someone was already close. In an environment where landmarks shift and trails do not exist, it is not difficult to imagine crossing an invisible boundary without realizing it. If Kenny had unknowingly entered or approached a restricted zone during his earlier hike, or encountered an entrance, structure, or access point he did not recognize as sensitive, it raises an uncomfortable question about what that cave actually was. Was it simply a natural formation that triggered fear and disorientation? Or was it something deliberately concealed, something not meant to be found, let alone entered? If authorities monitoring the region had reason to believe Kenny had seen something significant, he would not have been anonymous. He described his movements publicly. He identified terrain. He stated his intention to return. If he had been flagged as someone likely to come back, locating him in a remote desert corridor would not have been difficult. The capability to intercept a lone individual in that environment exists. The capability to remove evidence exists. And the capability to stage a scene, including the placement of a phone, exists as well. None of this proves that such an event occurred, but it does establish that if Kenny Veatch crossed a line that was not clearly marked, or entered a place he was not meant to access, there would be no public explanation of what followed. Which leaves one final unresolved question at the center of this case. If the cave Kenny described was insignificant, why does it appear to have vanished? And if it was significant enough to be concealed, what connection did it have to the restricted landscape surrounding Area 51? The pieces exist, but there are not enough of them to complete the puzzle. When investigations end without answers, the human mind fills the silence. Kenny Veatch was not lost in an unfamiliar region. He was not inexperienced, and he did not simply vanish without context. Something interrupted the expected pattern. Kenny Veatch entered a place he knew well, searching for something that frightened him enough to leave once and compelled him enough to return again. Searchers found where he parked. They found where he had been. They found what he left behind. They did not find him. So the question remains, what made an experienced desert hiker walk into the Mojave and never walk out again? If you enjoyed this story, please consider subscribing to the channel. Give it a like, a comment, and maybe a share. But if you didn't like the story, maybe share it with someone you don't like. In any case, I'm glad you stuck around to the end.